Hi, it's Lynn Shuck, and we're going to look at Sphinx today and touch on Cobra. Sphinx is what I call a dome. You're trying to change the shape of the spine to create a dome shape that arches with head and tailbone coming toward each other. Now, the lovely idea of that is it's a smooth curve. The problem with it is our spines don't have that smooth curve. We have one curve that goes one way and one curve that goes another and one curve that goes one way and then the sacrum and pelvis and yeah. So how do we get that to happen? Well, unfortunately, most of what we do when we come into domes is we lead with the chin and we overuse the back of the neck because it already curves that way and we're very mobile there. We just can dump that head back. And the other place that moves forward really easily is the lumbar. And so people will push their lumbar forward and either hurt their lower back or overwork at the juncture of rib cage to lumbar. And right at that little juncture at the base of the rib cage, they start to dump into that. Either way, we're overusing the lumbar and we're overusing the neck, and we got to get this thoracic spine articulating, and we have to get the pelvis actually moving toward extension. Without those two, you won't find a dome, and without those two, at a certain point, you just start to injure your lower back or your neck. So I like Sphinx because you're closer to the ground than Cobra. You're not overriding your abilities, and so there's a better chance of working here. You can put a block between your feet. I like to put a block 6 inches wide and then hug the block. Hug your thighs in toward each other. But you'll notice if I don't do anything from here and I just think lift my head, there goes the chin and the neck overworking. And if I just think lift my shoulders, you can see I'm actually almost folding my body right in the top of my lumbar curve. There's no curve, there's an angle. There's a straight line at an angle and a straight line parallel to the ground. We got to get things to move. So let's get out of the lumbar and out of the cervical curves. And so we engage these legs. We press the thighs into the floor. We hug them toward each other. Hug a block if you have a block. And we're going to see if we can get the top of the pelvis to lift off the floor. It might not lift off the floor yet, but you're working toward it. And do you see how now I'm already changing the shape of this pose a little bit. My thighs stay on the floor. The top of my pelvis is coming off the floor. My lower back is getting supported by my abdominal muscles, which kicked in simply by trying to lift that pelvis up. And then I press my hands into the floor. And again, I could just take my chin out, but instead, I'm going to try and get my collarbones to lift away from my lower ribs. And if you want to see more of that, you can look at the camel video and you'll get a better idea what that is. But right here, I've got my pelvis lifted. I'm going to try and lift the collarbones up, shoulders pull back, and that brings my head up versus chin forward to bring my head up. So what that looks like from the side again, thighs press into the floor, belly and top of the pelvis lift up off the floor, collarbones lift up, and now you're seeing something approaching a curve. It's not a great curve yet, but you know, my thoracic spine is pretty tight. I've worked on it for a long time, but I also have tightened it for a long time. As you get better at hip extension, you might find that you want to come back and work more in Cobra. Cobra is the same thing. We want to get the pelvis to lift off the floor. Notice I'm not straightening my arms all the way because if I do, I'm going to have to override something. I'm either going to have to lift my thighs off the floor and lose the curve, or I'm going to dump into that lower back. So I push up some, I draw my belly button in and lift the pelvis up off the floor, the top rim of it, and then again, collarbones lift up. So Cobra kind of happens if you get to the point where you're lifting your pelvis so high in Sphinx that it's time to go a little higher. Anyway, that can be a fun way to play with creating thoracic extension and hip extension so that you can start doing better domes that engage your body in healthier ways and build some strength and support of the lumbar and cervical spine. All right, go start playing with that. See how it works.